By the way, nobody knows about this.
So what's your philosophy about kindness? I was thinking, like, why should you be kind? Like, why should anybody be kind? Especially for those people that don't deserve it. Those people that cut you off in line, and those people you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off, or somebody just offends you and they hurt your feelings, right? And that they meant to do it. You know what it feels like when somebody hurts you and somebody upsets you. Yeah, why should you be kind? I don't know. And I wonder, like, if kindness, is that even something that's calling you out? Is kindness even something you even want to do? I looked at my book today, and I was looking to see do I even have the word kindness in my book. I don't even have the word kindness in my book. And then I was talking to Dr. Elia, who's going to be my guest, and I said to him earlier, I said, wow, I was kind of surprised that I don't have that word in my book. And I looked around. I looked on Amazon for books that spoke about kindness, and it was really interesting because I couldn't find anything. I've only one or two books that were about kindness, and one of them is one of Dr. Elia's partners in one of his businesses. And wow, that was what a surprise, right? And I thought, well, I don't know, what is it? Is it we're just not talking about kindness? Do we not care about kindness? Like, what's going on? And it's just it's really interesting that it's such an important part of everything. Think about it. Like, if we're being thoughtful, that's an act of kindness. If we're being thoughtful to somebody, that's like being kind to somebody. If we're being considerate, that's an act of kindness. What about if we're showing interest in somebody? I think I'd say that's an act of kindness. And then I looked at my book and I looked at every point that I made in the book, in the curiosity theory, and everything was really leading to kindness. It was really all about kindness. How can we be kind? There's so many different acts of kindness. You can help somebody take out the trash. You could buy somebody dinner. You could, they have people that'll buy the lunch at McDonald's for the person that's in the drive-thru right behind them or something. There's so many different ways to express kindness. But I was wondering, how can curiosity help you experience more kindness in life? And when I started talking to Dr. Elia, it was really interesting because he talks about kindness and happiness. And I said, you know what? Let's just talk about kindness. I love happiness. Don't get me wrong. Happiness is really great. But I think kindness is what we need. And so what I did is I normally have a brick wall behind me, right? Normally get in that part of the house. But I decided to go to the other part of the house. So I have this big American flag. And I can't think of anything better or I don't know, maybe more important, that we inject kindness into our country. So help me welcome Dr. Elia Gourgouris. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Martin. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you here. We've met each other last week, I think, for the first time, about a little more than a week ago. And it seemed to me like we were talking for about 10 minutes, and it was like almost an hour.
It went by fast. That's when two souls connect, it goes by fast.
It did. And I just couldn't wait to get you on. And I normally have like a panel. You normally have 4 people, but there was something about what you were bringing to the party and how you just got me thinking and so curious about kindness and about happiness. But I'd like to, let's talk about kindness today, and then let's come back and then bring some more people and talk about happiness on another day. How's that?
Sounds great to me. Ready to go.
So, like I said to you earlier today when we were talking, I looked around and I couldn't find a lot of stuff on kindness. And I was wondering what your thoughts were about that.
Well, first of all, I'm Greek. So the ancient Greek philosopher Plato said 2,500 years ago, be kind because everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Now think about that for a minute. Everyone we meet is fighting a hard battle. So the world right now is facing a multitude of crises simultaneously. It's obviously COVID-19, the mental health crisis, where depression, anxiety, and stress is up an astonishing over 1,000%. And according to the United Nations, over 1 billion people are suffering from depression, anxiety, and stress. Personally, I think that's underreported, because that implies that only 1 out of 7 people is dealing with those 3 things. I think 6 out of 7 people are dealing with that. I don't even know anybody who's not somewhat anxious, depressed, stressed out at the very least, right?
Yeah.
When you have the economic and the financial crisis with hundreds of millions of people unemployed, underemployed, and billions of people feeling financially insecure from like, how am I going to provide for myself and my loved ones? And then, of course, you have the social, political, and racial strife in the streets. And that doesn't take into account, mind you, any natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes,
Hurricanes and all that
fires.
stuff.
We're not
Yeah.
even counting those. And more importantly, we're not even talking about people's personal crises, like someone going through a breakup or a divorce or a sick child, or we're not even counting those.
Yeah.
So as human beings, we're pretty resilient. We can handle one or two crises, but we can't handle four or five at the same time, especially when there's no end in sight. So now, why is kindness important? It's more important now than any time in the history, at least in modern history. You would have to go back probably to the end of the Second World War, right? We haven't had anything like this in over 100 years, a true pandemic. And it's impacting everyone, regardless of your race, your nationality, your ethnicity, your socioeconomic status, your religion. It doesn't matter. We're all in it, and we're all in it together. So as a result of that, I think kindness is even more important than ever. Now, we have this term social distancing, which I abhor. I think somebody came up with that back at the beginning of the year, and it caught on social media, and it's such a misnomer. Really, what we should be talking about is physical distancing. We need more social connection than ever before. Compassion, love, kindness, be of service. Those things are more necessary now. And why is that? Because people are more isolated than ever before. There's an epidemic of loneliness.
Mm.
And think of how loneliness impacts one's emotional and mental state, right? We even now have, according to medical doctors, a broken heart syndrome. That people are showing up broken. And I'm not talking about broken heart because your girlfriend broke up with you when you were 17. I'm talking about a physiological, your heart is broken. And these are people that, again, did not have pre-existing conditions in terms of heart disease or heart attacks or anything like that. Their hearts are broken. And what's the cure to that? The cure to that is human connection. And, that, and as you mentioned in your introduction, kindness doesn't imply some major act like a Mother Teresa who, devoted, her entire life in the, in the slums of Calcutta. Kindness could be a smile, a compliment. I work a lot with HR senior directors and organizations who have come to me since the book came out, 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis, which really, we wrote that for individuals to help them through crisis. We never imagined that organizations, both profit and nonprofit, Fortune 100 companies and small nonprofit companies, will come to us and say, as the economy opened up in, basically June, July, we need your help. Our people are suffering. We don't know what to do. They're scared. So one of the things that I coach them on is with your employees, and that's also true for our people that we love, actually, but let's use the employees, for example.
Let's use the employees right now. Yeah.
If you have, so for your supervisors, your managers, basically anyone that has someone that reports to them is a leader to me, even if it's one person.
Yeah.
When you reach out to those people, because most of it is happening remotely, by the way, so it's not even happening live. It's happening like you and I are talking right now. When you talk to them, when you call them up on a Zoom call, this is what you need to do. You address them and say, listen, and you lean in. Don't ask them how they're doing, because everybody's going to say, oh, I'm fine. Everything is okay. I said, no, the door is closed. How are you really doing? How's your family? How are your kids? How are your loved ones? Is there anything we as an organization or I personally can do for you? And mean it. Before you go on to all the deadlines and all the things that I have to do, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. And this is more true now than it's ever been before. We have done surveys across thousands of HR organizations. You know what the biggest challenge facing HR organizations, this is across the globe, this is not an American thing, is number one challenge to ensure the physical and the mental well-being of our employees. Martin, this wouldn't even make the top 10 before the pandemic.
No, it wouldn't.
Right?
Yeah, no, it was a second day conversation, if you even got to that conversation.
That's right.
Yeah,
And number two is, how do you maintain employee engagement, productivity, effectiveness, and so on?
yeah.
Great. You
That's
can't
what
get
we're
to
working
number
on.
two
We're
until you hit
focusing on
number
bottom
one.
line. We were focusing on bottom line. How do we keep people engaged? How do we keep them employed? How do we keep them excited about being here? And it seems to me like what you're saying is that it's like how do we keep people alive? How do we mend those hearts? I was
Right.
Victor Frankl saying, what's the book he wrote?
Men search for meaning.
Yeah, it was, he's talking about they knew when somebody was going to die. They knew that their heart was broken and they had given up, and they had basically knew that they were going to die in 72 hours.
Right.
And it's wow. And I had no idea that it was that bad because
You know what?
I'm
And
going
the
a
thing
mile a
about that
minute.
is, Martin, is like these people were not killed by the Nazis. They expired. They gave up the ghost
You
because they
gave it
gave
up.
up hope. Right.
Yeah, they gave up hope. And is that what's missing? The hope? Is that because you don't see an end, so you don't have hope, you don't have something to point to and say that's the top of the mountain. I might be tough, but I'm at least going to try to get there.
Like, listen, people, we hate uncertainty. We're creatures of habit. We like
Yeah,
to be in our comfort zone, and we have been pushed so far outside of our comfort zone. Like between you and I, if Dr. Fauci came on the air tonight and said, listen, January 31st, this pandemic is over. February 1st, we'll go back to business as usual. Everything is back to normal. You and I would go, man, we've been through this for like 9 months already, but I can't hang in there for another 60 days if I know definitively that there's
yeah,
an end to it. The
yeah.
fact that there's no end in sight, and the fact that as we speak today, that we're breaking records every single day. The last 7 days, over 100,000 people infected in the United States every day. Like in the last 10 days, we've had another million people. Okay, people are tired. They're fatigued. They're basically, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of wearing a mask. I'm sick of like, be careful. I just want my life back. I just want to, just go to work, come home, grab a few beers with my friends, hang out,
Yeah.
play, have fun. We're tired of being isolated and cut off. So as a result, we have to practice more kindness. Now, in both of my books, I wrote 2 books. The 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness would sit number 1 in the bestseller. You know what the last chapter is? Be of service. This book on 7 keys to navigating a crisis. The last key is be kind. So as I have an opportunity to speak and spread the message as much as I can on happiness and wellness and love and kindness, I ask people to practice acts of kindness on a daily basis. Guess what's happened to me? I've gotten pushback.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
So what is it? Is it people don't understand kindness? And I'll tell you, this is what I mean by that, because every morning I journal. I get up about 5:00 in the morning and I start journaling. And I write anywhere from about 600 to 800, sometimes as much as 1,000 words. And this morning I got up and I was like, I'm going to write on kindness. And I may got to about 290 words or something. And it's like I have no expertise on that. Like I understand what it is to be kind. Like I understand that, but I don't have it as a definition. I don't have it as a distinction, like as a strategy. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's not that people don't understand what kindness is or how it manifests itself. The pushback is this. They're like, Dr. Elia, I'm drowning. I'm depressed. I'm at my wit's end. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have anything to give. And are you seriously asking me to go out and help somebody else? And this is a quote. What am I, my brother's keeper? People have actually said that to me. So I kind of push back at me. I'm like, no. You're not your brother's keeper. You're your sister's keeper and your mother's keeper and the neighbor's keeper and the homeless person down the street or somebody 10,000 miles on the other side of the world who's starving to death. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if people are hearing the sound of your voice, Martin, and mine in today's podcast, I guarantee you're better off than somebody else. I guarantee it. All you got to do is look around through your extended family or your sphere of influence in your community, your town, your city, your country, or beyond the borders of your country. You're better off than somebody else. Now, why is kindness important? I co-host actually a podcast called The Kindness and Happiness Connection. So this is part of, in my wheelhouse. Happy people by nature, because their batteries are full. They practice self-care. They love themselves. They're full. They go out and perform acts of kindness on their own without even thinking about it. It's second nature because their batteries are full. On the flip side, when we perform acts of kindness, there's something that happens innately that makes us feel better about ourselves. If I'm ever down, on life or myself, the quickest way for me to get out of that is to go and help somebody else who's
Yeah.
worse off than I am. And I'm not saying it's always easy or I have the best attitude going into the act of service, but I can tell you this: when I'm driving home on the way back, you have that warm feeling in your heart that you know that you did something good for somebody else.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
a lesson that I learned, it was this is the first lesson that I remember learning in life consciously. I was 5 years old, and my grandpa Elia, whose name I carry and I honor, and he died when I was 6, so it's not like I have a lot of memories from him, pulled me aside one time, and I was just thinking about it like a 5-year-old little boy in Greece, and he says to me, "If you want to live a good life, it's easy." So my ears kind of perked up, like, really? I was a curious kid. So,
Yeah.
curiosity here's all you have to do is do something good for somebody else every day of your life, and you'll be the richest man. Now, in my 5-year-old little brain, somehow, because I remember that it's one of my earliest memories in life, it made sense. So, okay, do something good for somebody else, I'll be a rich man. A very simple lesson that has, you know, it permeated my soul. Like I've devoted my whole life doing that. Obviously, not a perfect person, not every day, obviously,
Yeah.
but for the most part, looking for opportunities to uplift somebody else and make a difference in somebody else's life. And I can tell you, I'm a very rich man as a result of that. If I were to die today, and I go to the other side, I know for a fact I've left this world a better place than I found it, in small ways, maybe in some larger ways too. So that's why I'm here to spread the message of kindness and happiness, because I believe it with all my heart. In the end, nobody cares about your home, your cars, but nobody. What they'll care about is how did you make them feel, when you're in their presence.
What was my experience of this person? Like, what is that? Like, how did I experience myself when I was with you? How did I experience
Right.
myself in that relationship? Yeah. If you're here, we can't see everybody that's here. So if you're here, please, make a comment and so that we know you're here. Ruben Lowing's on. He's an amazing ex-SEAL boxer, amazing guy, Dr. Elia. Something you said quite a few things, and I made some notes, but I was wondering, like, how do you plant the kindness seed? Your grandfather planted it in you, right?
You really
And
did.
and for me, the seed of kindness was more a sense came from me more of how I felt my father treated me. Not that he treated me that way, but my experience of how my father treated me was not a good experience. So
Okay.
I didn't want anybody ever to feel that way. So then I started to mine was like the opposite of yours, right? I
Right.
wanted people to feel good. I didn't want people ever to feel that way that I felt. And so my goal was to bring that, to try to bring happiness, try to bring a smile to people. And I always try to do that. And how at let's say I'm 56, I just turned 56 last week. So let's say
Happy
we're
birthday.
dealing with, thank
Happy
you.
birthday, man.
Let's say we're dealing with people that are in their 40s and 50s and they don't have that planted. How do you plant that seed at this age for somebody that doesn't really maybe have that muscle of kindness?
Like any muscle, as you know, you have to exercise it, right?
Hmm.
So be mindful. And if you grasp how important kindness is, especially now more than any other time, suicide hotline numbers are at an all-time high, more than any. People are abusing drugs, using and abusing drugs and alcohol, and overeating. Basically they're escaping even whatever they used to escape before the pandemic. Well, they're doing that even more now because they need to escape outside because life is tough right now.
No.
So how can we ease
Life's always been tough. It's especially tough right
it's
now.
especially tough, exactly, just like Plato said, right? Everybody's fighting the fight, and
Yeah.
it's not easy. And as I saw something today, which is beautiful. You know how you get messages that come from different social media platforms that said, "We're not all on the same boat, but we're all in the same storm." Well, it's beautiful. I didn't come up with that. I wish I
That's
could get credit for
good.
that, but that is so good. So I'm going to be posting that. I copy pasted. I'm posting that on my Instagram tomorrow because I think that's so good. Yeah, we're not all in the same boat. Some are better, some are worse, but we are facing the same storm, my friend.
Yeah,
And as a
we're all in the
result of
same
that,
storm.
it's even, like I said, even more important to be compassionate, loving, and kind to other people. Now, people have said, well, how can you do that? We're all like isolated. Like, you know how you can do it? listen to that still small voice in your heart. I don't care what you call that. Whether what I'm saying is, we have two
Whether
ears.
it's God or universe, whatever you call
Exactly.
that, right?
Your
Yeah.
intuition, your inner wisdom, the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit. I don't care what you call it.
Call it what you want.
Yeah,
Just listen to it.
exactly. And not just listen to it, but listen to it and then take action. Because that's always the case. In the end, it doesn't matter what you know. What matters in life really is, what do you do with what you know?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll give you a specific example that I had. And this was back in April when the shutdown began to happen. I had a very strong impression to reach out to a good friend of mine. We've been friends for 40 years in Greece, like 10,000 miles away, right? And, brilliant lady, has a PhD from USC, educated in America, went back, she's a professor
Right
at
on.
university. I mean, like, yeah, the USC.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So Dr. Elia is
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
USC,
went to
he's a
UCLA. I
UCLA
don't know
guy.
about that.
He's a UCLA guy. So
Yeah,
fight on.
but I can still be friends. I can still be friends. I mean,
That's
and
right.
anyway, I got this very strong to call her up on Zoom. So I called, or, Messenger, whatever. I
Mhm.
called her up and she answered the phone. It was like midnight in Greece. She goes, "Hi." I said, "Sorry, did I wake you up?" She goes, "No, I'm awake." I said, "I just called to see how you're doing." She goes, "Well, that's very interesting." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "Because I suffer from asthma, severe asthma. And for the last 14 days, I've I've isolated myself in an apartment in Athens. I haven't seen my adult kids. I haven't seen anybody. I haven't touched anybody, hugged anybody, or even seen anybody for 14
Wow.
days."
Oh,
She says,
wow.
"Have you ever had that happen to you?" And I seriously, Martin, I had to think about it. Like, I don't think I've ever been alone for 14 days by myself without any human contact. And she
I don't
says
even
to
like
me,
being alone for one day.
yeah, but I mean, so I wanted to put myself in her shoes. I'm like, I wonder what that's going to be like. And she goes,
Yeah.
"I'm going to be this way for at least the next 30 days until this passes. Other than going out and getting some food and coming back, that's it." Actually, she said, "I have the food delivered." She didn't even leave.
Wow.
And so we talked a little bit, and I said, "I'm going to check in with you every week." And she goes, "Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for calling. That was so nice." Okay. Obviously, how did I? There's no way for me to have known somebody is isolated. I didn't even know she had asthma, let alone.
Yeah.
I just got the message and I acted upon it. And then every week I check in with her. After 2 or 3 weeks, she goes, "I'm doing better. I'm feeling better. I'm getting comfortable being by myself," which I've never done. Okay, so that's a very small act of kindness. Reach out to somebody, a phone call, check in with them, and truly don't say, "How you doing? How are you really doing?" Like we talked about before, like lean into the camera, get real close. How are you really doing?
Yeah.
And that's it. Did it cost me anything? No. It was a 10-minute conversation, but the other person felt like somebody's thinking about them, and we felt that connection again, and it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Simple example.
I'm thinking about kindness, and they really are all small acts of kindness. They really are. They're all small ones. They're little things you do, like call somebody or send somebody a card. They're just
Yeah.
they're hardly ever grandiose. It's like, oh yeah, we threw a party for you. That was really nice. That's like nice, but kindness is that you brought a nice gift, or whatever that little thing is. It was like you're expressing your heart.
Yeah, even if you text somebody, and say,
Yeah,
"Hey, thinking of you. How are you doing? I hope you're well. I'm just thinking about you."
yeah.
What is the worst thing that could happen? Like Helen could have told me, "I'm fine. Why are you calling me?" That's the worst thing they could have said.
Are you okay? Is something wrong with you? Right? Is
But
everything okay?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're going to be rejected. The worst thing could happen is, "Lo, I'm fine. Thanks for thinking of me." But the best thing that could happen is somebody's truly lonely, isolated, or feeling down. And now they know that somebody else cares about them and cared enough to pick up the phone or get on a Zoom call or whatever, you know.
Mm.
So that's the best thing that could happen. And what impact that has on her, you know, I know that by the 2 or 3 times I called her afterwards, she was getting better and better, because so
I think it's a muscle. I think it's a muscle. It's a ripple as well. You start to do things and then they become easier to do things. And, like picking up the phone, like so many people I think don't pick up the phone. It's just because it's not what they do. So then you do it and you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to turn my TV off. I'm going to turn Netflix off for a few minutes. I'm going to get
right.
off of Facebook or something. I'm just going to make a call, or I'm going to go for a walk, or, it's like all those
Or
little
even
things that
smile
we
at somebody
do.
when you go for a walk. Smile at somebody, and everybody's so afraid right now. They're so afraid.
Well, your
Like
face is
people are
covered. You
walking,
can't tell if they're smiling or not, half of them.
or
Yeah.
if you're not wearing a mask and they're wearing a mask, they're just freaking out as if you got the plague. And even though you're like, 20 feet away from them, they're like, people are so scared.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to say about that. There's a big difference between danger versus fear. Okay. Danger
Let's
is
talk
real.
about that.
Well, let's talk, because danger is real. If somebody comes up to you and coughs in your face, you are in danger. This is not a political statement. This is a scientific, factual statement. So let's cut the crap, basically. This is a fact, right? Now,
Yes.
fear, on the other hand, is not your friend. You don't want to walk around or live in fear or make any decisions, either personal, professional, or even organizational decisions based on fear, because the outcome is not going to be pretty. So let's separate danger versus fear. Respect the danger, but don't be afraid. Don't live in fear. Life is too short.
Well, let's. I'm going to challenge that. Okay, and so I'm going to agree with it and challenge it. Okay,
Please
because
do.
I got a
Yeah,
feeling
I like
what we're
that.
saying is,
Yeah.
so yeah, I agree. Don't live in fear, and if you're not afraid, you could. Some people are stupid because they're not afraid. Like, sorry, like that. You should be afraid of some things, right? So it's what I hear you saying is fear doesn't have to consume you. Fear doesn't have to be something that your mind runs off with. And
And
I'm
don't
afraid
make
of saying, make up
decisions.
stories about it and make
And-
it deeper and
right.
right.
And don't make decisions based on fear, because I don't think those are positive decisions. But you have to respect the danger, because this is real, you guys. I mean, the numbers don't lie. We're heading in the wrong direction, by the way, here in America anyway, and other parts of the world. So protect yourself and be respectful of other people. There's some people that are pretty flippant about this whole thing, and there are other people that are consumed by fear. Even if you're not consumed by fear, be kind, I guess, to
Yeah.
even that people are reacting to this with more fear than perhaps you do. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
absolutely. Like for me, I think my position for this whole thing is that I respect other people's fear. I don't like wearing a mask. I
I
walk
don't
every
either.
day. I do
I don't
things.
either.
I don't wear a mask when I walk.
I don't
And
either.
at
I'm
the
with
same
you on that.
time, when other people are wearing masks, I'm not going to be a jerk and go, "Oh, you're an idiot because you're wearing a mask." But there is this kind of this whole social construct that's happening with that. It's kind of like a new version of racism or a new version of division or a new version of something, and that is not kind in what it's creating. I mean, so let's talk about that for a second. How does
I've seen people that are wearing masks, when they approach me, they actually turn their back on me as if, and I know it's because they're afraid. Now they
yeah,
could have a compromised immune system. You don't know who's in their
and
home.
we don't know. We
don't
don't
know.
know, right?
So
Yeah,
let's
we
not
don't know.
judge them. Yeah, let's not judge
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so let's put that aside. Let's look at the what's going on with people. Like, what is as a doctor, what's the trigger? What's the thing that's going on with people? Because we're talking about kindness, right? And then
Yeah.
they're talking about fear. So let's talk a little bit about fear and how fear doesn't let us doesn't let us show acts of kindness because we're so busy reacting.
Well, and that's true. And you almost want to. I never say anything, obviously, when people are like that, but there's a part of me that really wants to say, it's like, don't be afraid. Like,
Yeah.
wear your mask, protect yourself, take care of yourself, but don't live in fear. I see fear, and I got to fly to Greece this summer and spend like 6 or 7 weeks there. But I can tell you, on the airplane, when you get up, you have to go to the restroom and you have to walk all the way to the back. I was looking at people's eyes on both sides of the aisle, and they're all wearing masks, of course, like they should. And
Yeah.
there was so much fear in their eyes, Martin.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how people, I mean, you could just see it.
It's almost like, are you the guy that's going to give it to me? Are you the girl that's going to give this to me?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
there's this, because I thought about this the other day is that, if somebody in a normal, let's say, 2018, 2017, 2019, normally when somebody has a cold or somebody has a runny nose or somebody's coughing or something, we distance ourselves from those people because we don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick. So if you're coughing, I'm going to move, or sneezing, I'm going to move away from you. And I think that's a normal reaction.
Right.
This reaction, because of the masks and because of everything that's in the news, and because we're showing numbers and we're showing, it's creating more fear, which I think it separates us. It separates us from the the ability, I think, because we're in fight or flight. How do we be kind when we're in a fight or flight, mentality? Our reptilian brains is being triggered, and we know our reptilian brain doesn't think at all. It's just either going to, kill or eat you, or,
React. It reacts.
It's all about reaction. So there's
Right.
no common sense there. So how do we move from that fear mode into kindness, into acts of kindness?
And you know something else? If you're in a closed place, like at an airplane, and you have to sneeze, you're afraid to sneeze. But or if you're eating like
I was in Costco the other day and I had to cough, and I was like, "Oh man!"
If you have to, you're eating a little cookie and it goes down the and you have to cough 2 or 3 times, you feel like, "Oh no!" You almost need to stand up. I don't have COVID.
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
Here's my test. Here's my test. It's just a cookie.
It's just a cookie, man. I gotta get the plane. So,
exactly. I was in there yesterday. I was in there Sunday. I was at Costco, and I started to cough. Like, for some reason, I don't know. You just cough, right? And I was like, "Oh man,"
It's almost like coughing is almost outlawed. Like you're not even allowed to cough, even when you're not even sick. Like you suddenly it's stuck in. No, that's bad. So
I just clear my throat.
that is the byproduct of people being so afraid and so paranoid, almost like if you cough, you're gonna you give it to them. So I don't think we need to judge people who are scared or afraid, because I get it. I mean, I don't get it because I'm not afraid. Like I don't live in fear very much. I mean, people have said, "Well, what if you get COVID?" And I'm like, okay, what if?
I'm going to deal with it. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what if you get really sick? I'm like, and then what? Well, Elia, what if you die? I'm like, and then what? Exactly. We're all going to die at some point.
That's right.
I wanted that. I'm just saying that, relax. I know everybody's stressed out, but the best thing we can do is be loving and kind and understanding and compassionate with one another, and give them.
That's in any circumstance. That is in any circumstance, right? That's just got to be a rule for life,
right? But you brought up a point about, like, how can you be kind when other people are somebody cuts you off on the freeway? Let's use that as an example.
Yeah.
What I've noticed in life, when my batteries are full and I'm in a good place and somebody cuts me off, I actually wave them in. Like, go ahead. I slow down. I wave them in. If I'm in a bad mood and I'm cranky and I'm stressed out and all that stuff, if somebody starts to cut me off, I use the international signal of the finger.
You're the one for me, right?
Yeah. Or I punch it and I like, you don't know you're cutting into me. And I'm like, well, the circumstances is the same. So what's the difference? The difference is what place am I in? If I'm in a good place, I'm patient. And understanding, it's like, maybe he's in a hurry. Maybe he has to take his wife to the doctor. Who knows? Yeah. But if I'm in a bad mood, there's no way anybody's going to cut me. That's it. Yeah. So isn't that interesting?
We choose. We reserve the right. Human beings reserve the right to do that. We reserve the right to be a jerk. We reserve the right to be gracious. We're talking. We have our reasons, our justifications for doing that. We always do. Well, right. And it's always like, well, this or well, and it's always an external blame. It's very, very seldom. Well, I'm just in a bad mood.
But I think we need to own that. Like, and I know enough about myself. Now, man, if you must be in a bad mood because you just cut that guy off, like, you honked or whatever. Just like, because I know that if I'm in a good place, it doesn't bother me. And I'm like, that's interesting.
Or we're holding on to it, right? We're holding on to it. It's like the guy cut us off back there, and then we're just talking. We're 3 miles down the road, and we're still blah blah blah. We're still having a conversation. Things already over.
What does that do for us? It robs us from our own personal wellness and happiness if we do that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So
our own joy.
That's right.
Joy.
So
and kindness does. Kindness is the gift that keeps on giving. It's just nice to be kind. It's like it's not like. Let's not even talk about how it is out there for the person that you're being kind to. I believe it's a personal expression of yourself, and you get to experience the act of being kind.
Well, you know what happened to me? This was about a couple of years ago. I was driving early morning through Starbucks, and I ordered, and I get to and I'm about to pay. He goes, "Oh, the guy in front of me paid." I'm like, "Excuse me?" Oh, he already paid for your stuff. I'm like, what do you mean? Like my brain couldn't comprehend. He goes, well, he just paid it.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, thank you. Like, how can I thank this guy? And then I thought, you know what? let me just pay for the guy behind me then.
You're back. Yeah.
And I did. And I felt
That's so
good.
cool.
I don't know. I mean, and I'm sure that person probably did it for the person behind them. And it was such a beautiful thing. Like, what a great way to start the day, right? Somebody perform an act of kindness towards me, and I just, passed it forward. And that's the great thing about kindness. It blesses both the giver and the receiver, right?
But mostly the giver is the one that gets the experience because you're the one. See, I think it's like an action, right? Kindness is an action. So if you're giving the action, you might see a smile or you might have a thought that somebody appreciated it. But you're the one that gets to like look at yourself like, that's like me. I'm the kind of person that does something good. And I think that's how people mostly aspire to be good people. Like, I want to be a good person because we have enough experiences of telling ourselves we're a piece of nothing, right? And we have good versions of insulting ourselves, like what Marshall Rosenberg, violent communication. So you can have an opportunity to speak in nonviolent communication and something being loving, being a service to yourself and being able to see yourself as a hero. What a great experience of life that is.
Think about any time you've given something to a homeless person who literally has nothing, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's some money or perhaps food or a piece of clothing that if it's wintertime or whatever. What is it that they typically say to you just before you drive off? God bless you.
They always do. Yeah.
Always do.
Yeah, always do.
And to me, there's no greater gift than them saying that to us,
Yeah.
For the small act of kindness, they're asking God to bless us. And how beautiful is that? Yeah. Like, don't take that for granted. I never do. I'm like, well, God bless you too. I never take that for granted. I'm like, thank you for saying that.
Let's go back real quick and just kind of acknowledge some of the people. So we got Rico Cavella, who's a really good friend of mine. He says really, really good stuff. Actually, he said that twice. Thank you, Rico. Kimberly, hey Kimberly, how you doing? I think she said something over here when I get to, and Ruben was saying earlier that 22 veterans commit suicide a day. Is that what you were saying, Ruben? Please. I think that's the number.
I hope that's not true, but I mean that number, wow, it's stunning.
Yeah. And then it sounded like Ruben had a birthday too. So, Kimberly had a birthday on the 30th. Happy birthday, Kimberly. And Dr. Sophie said something. One of my biggest fears is reading in public. So I'm going to read this here.
I can read it too.
Go ahead. I'll let you read it then.
Dr. Sophie Nubani, thank you for your comment. She said the positive effects of kindness are experienced in the brain of everyone who witnessed the act. It assists in improving mood, and it is contagious. No question about that. Mm-hmm. When someone shares a random act of kindness, more likely others witnessing would want to pay it forward. Exactly. This means one good deed in a crowded area can create a domino effect and improve the day of dozens of people. Amen to that. Same when our curiosity is intrinsic, it stimulates our dopamine levels in our brain and our memory recall. So what we're curious, I guess. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Sophie. Very well said. And totally true. Yeah.
Let me see what else we got. Dr. Ruben is if people were eating right and exercising, their immune system would deal with COVID-19. And yeah, so that's true. That's, that's what we say. That's what people say. So Kimberly said, I'm a cashier and had to definitely remove fear and live in high vibrations and believe that I am safe. If I choose to be safe, I think that's great. This is the only way I could carry on. And that's true. It's like safety, one of the things we talk about the curiosity theory is that all those things, all the human needs are needs that we have to first give ourselves. We got to create safety in ourselves. And if what we expect is people outside to create safety for us, then we're at the effect of other people. And I feel that, the people that I work with, and I'm sure the same thing with you, Dr. Elia, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that working with people that take personal responsibility and safety would be one of those personal responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to address Kimberly for a minute. First of all, thank you for your service. Because we always think about the healthcare provider, the doctors, the nurses, the physicians' assistants, and the practitioners, the hospital administration, so on, being on the front lines. But you know what? Cashiers do their job in, serve us, the public, and often that goes almost unseen or unappreciated or underappreciated. So I want to express publicly to Kimberly, thank you for being a cashier because you interact with people all day long. and you are exposing yourself to perhaps getting. But thank you for doing your job. I mean, that's seriously.
Yeah. Here goes Rico. He said, being kind to someone else is also being kind to yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Kimberly said something else. I'll let you read this one.
I had motivational people like Martin Lopez and my beautiful friend Jessica Sanchez that lifted me up in spirit. I have been blessed with their teaching and keeping motivated. I miss Jessica so much. She had a gift of expression. I wish I could still learn from her. You know what?
Jessica was a friend of ours that was on the show a few times, and she had got COVID and passed away.
Oh
I think
no,
about 2 months ago, a month ago.
really?
Yeah.
Well, you
She's
know
a
what?
beautiful soul.
The best way to honor her legacy is to emulate her acts of kindness. No, seriously.
That's right. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really cool. I want to go back and talk about a couple things that you had brought up. It was really, really powerful. Well, actually, you know what? What are the 7 steps? Because you said that kindness is the 7th step. What are the 7 steps that lead to kindness, or that kindness is a part of? And that's for.
Are we talking about the happiness or navigating a crisis? Because those are two different. They're slightly.
Let's talk about the happiness one, and then we'll kind of set up that show. Yeah.
So the happiness, obviously you started with self-love. Self-care. Learn how to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Obviously, that's number one. And then we move on to gratitude. As you know, it's impossible to be in a gratitude state and be depressed at the same time. I mean, physiologically, it's impossible because of what happens to your brain. And more importantly, can we be grateful in the middle of adversity? We're all graduates from the University of Adversity. Every single one of us. No, we're all graduates. And the older you get, the more gray hair you have, the higher your degree.
I got it here, and
now you don't
have it up here.
You have at least a master's degree in adversity, and then some. You're working on your PhD right now as we speak.
No doubt. So you have So I'm sorry. So start all over again.
Love yourself, and then gratitude, obviously.
Okay.
And then we move to forgiveness, and I think Gandhi said, "Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong," which is one of my favorite quotes. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong, Mahatma Gandhi, and I specifically emphasize self-forgiveness, which is an act of self-compassion and kindness. Human beings, and the first half of my career, I was a clinical psychologist in private practice. I work with people day in and day out. And I noticed that they might forgive even people that abuse them early on in their lives. They have a hard time forgiving themselves.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things human beings, their weaknesses and human frailties and mistakes that they make. And what I've learned, I learned something really important about the difference between successful people and the rest of us. Successful people do 3 things differently. When they make a mistake, right? The first thing that they do is they own it. They take personal responsibility. This is on me. Nobody put a gun to my head. I'm responsible for it. Mm-hmm. Number 2, they learn from it. Like, what is the lesson in this mistake that I made? And number 3, Martin, and I think this is more important than the first 2. For me personally, anyway, they have the ability to let it go, which means that they forgave themselves and let it go. So they're not moving into the new year carrying the backpack full of rocks every day, 100 pounds full of resentments and hurts and weak, and all that stuff. They don't carry that backpack. They're free. It's not that they don't make mistakes. It's that they own it, learn from it, and the ability to let it go so they can move forward in life. And that's huge.
I love it. Rico's version is, I think, one of the most important things to realize is that life is not happening to you. Rather, it's happening for you.
Wow. That's so true.
Yeah. That seems to me like what you said. That to me is rings with what you said.
Yeah, but most people feel like it's happening to me. They have the victim mentality.
Yeah.
That's right. But,
I like forgiveness. I like what you said you said Mahatma Gandhi said that, or did you say, okay.
Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong.
So when we were talking earlier about how do you be kind inside of the context of I don't feel like it, you cut me off. That is a act of courage. That is an act of strength. That is an act of bravery, humility, all those things.
Right.
Because it requires that. It requires to let go whatever is there. And I'm telling you, I mean, people say people think I'm like have a really good version of letting things go. Well, you wrote a book called The Curiosity Theory. No, I wrote a book because I need to learn these lessons.
And when we don't let go. I know there's I don't know who said this. The saying is like, when we get angry, anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so
No, but
like
that's what we're doing.
it's the
Well, not
same,
being kind to somebody's the same thing. I'm not going to be kind to you as if, so that you can have an experience of something, and I'm the one holding the lack of kindness or that lack of generosity. I'm the one that's experiencing that. And then,
right?
like, the muscle we can build is that when we can build that muscle, that we can be, in that mindset of the forgiveness state, of the Mahatma Gandhi version of, like, I can let this go and I can
Right,
be kind for the kindness, for the sake of kindness,
right.
for the sake of my own life, and in service to myself and in service to the conversation.
I mean, think about it. With his kindness and his nonviolent means, he brought down the British Empire. I mean, think about it, like that's no small task for
Mhm.
someone who forgave his oppressors, right, and was able to free India. I mean, just a remarkable example. So back to the seven paths of lasting happiness. We got
We were
love,
on one, two,
health,
three.
three. Okay, so the fourth one is, what is your purpose in life? And for me, I learned my purpose early on. My grandpa had a lot to do with that. Leave this world a better place than I found it, make a difference in people's lives. That has driven me for decades, and it's still alive, and I'm as passionate about that as ever. And then the fourth one, no, the fifth one is
Uh,
basically nourish your spirit. And that's not really a religious thing. It's more like I believe we're spiritual beings. And so, just the way you want to nourish and nurture your physical body by eating healthy and exercising and getting good sleep and all that stuff, nourish your spirit. And then we move on to relationships and having loving relationships. And really, the biggest part of that particular path is to get rid of toxic relationships in our lives. I made a conscious decision like 10 years ago. I don't want any toxic people in my life.
mhm.
And you know what happened? They disappeared. And people say, well, how can you do that? How do you say that? I said, it's easy. No, actually, it's easier than you think. And
Yeah.
here's why. If I treat you with love, kindness, and respect, guess what? I expect that in return. Simple. And
Yeah.
if you can't do that, now we have to show up being loving, kind, and respectful first. Because if I don't show up that way, I can't demand or expect somebody else to do that to me.
Yeah.
But if I do show up that way, then if you're toxic, you're out.
It's not about being a hypocrite. It's about saying, listen, I'm gonna be a particular way, and this is what I want to surround myself with. And I'm not saying that you have to be that way. What I'm saying is
But
that
you don't have
the
to.
people that are around me, they're gonna be
Exactly.
that way because that's who I'm gonna surround myself with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
And
There's
and the seventh, path to happiness, of course, is to be of service, to be kind, like what we're talking about. And that's because so I feel like we start from self care, which may seem somewhat selfish, but we have to take care of ourselves. But then we end by becoming truly our brothers and our sisters keeper, like we talked about before. And those are the seven paths. There you go.
I love purpose. I wanted to stop at purpose in life, and I think that's a really, really important thing because it seems to me like so many people that I talk to, so many people that I work with are alive and they have like a job or they know their role. Like, this is what I do. This is what happened to me, and this is where I ended up. And
Right.
I went to school here, and so I have this job and that. But very, very few people I meet are living from their purpose, or purpose-driven people.
And when they do, it never feels like work. It never feels like work.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, getting paid and the money is important and so on. But honestly, when you're living your purpose in life, you bring passion. What happens is that there's energy inside of you because when you're tuned in, it just feels natural. It feels normal. It's not work. I can't explain it.
No, it's so funny. I just thought of this. I never thought of this before, but I was thinking, because I love doing curiosity. I love coaching people and I love doing all that stuff. And so I just realized, what's in the background? I go, I hope I can get paid for this.
Well, that's it.
'Cause I'm going to do it anyways, right?
Right. Do it anyways, but and get compensated for that as well.
I love it.
So, yeah.
So you said nourish your spirit, and what I like about that, and Rico, my buddy Rico Cavalli, is doing a lot of comments over here, and he talks about spirit, and what he says is, like, spirit is the energy that comes from inside of us. So when
Right.
you're nourishing your spirit, what I hear you saying is, like, that which is inside you, that energy that's going to come out of you, and it could be just, you didn't eat very much today, so you feel lighter and you feel like you feel a little bit more. Yeah, nourish that, like, watch that and feed that, or sometimes don't feed it. See what happens.
And part of that is like we talked about, listening, right? Listening with that third ear, listening to
Hmm.
that voice, and that's part of feeding your spirit. I,
Hmm.
I will tell you this: every time I've
Yeah.
listened to that voice and acted upon it, it's always worked out. I'm talking about always. This isn't an absolute. Which absolutes are very few and far in between in life. And every time I listened to the voice and then ignored it, guess what happens? I pay the price for it.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That's awesome.
I ignore it sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing that. And well, guess what happens when you ignore your intuition or your inner wisdom or the spirit of God, whatever? You're going to pay a price for it.
A few months ago, I had some authors, and they wrote a book called The Human Design, and I took the test, and they worked with me for a couple hours. And one of the things that they said that I need to act more on my intuition.
Yes.
And up to that point, I didn't do that. Like I was like, no, it's got to be practical. It's got to be, fact based. It's got
Not
kind of
everything.
like
Not
that.
everything has to be practical. No.
And when I worked with them, what they did is they were able to show me like where I actually was acting on intuition. They were asking me questions about my life, and then what about this? What about that? And I go, well, I did this, I did that. And she goes, that was acting on your intuition. So then I started to be more open to that,
Mindful.
and be able
Yeah.
to
And
release
very
that, more
mindful.
mindful. Well, I
Right.
think more trusting too, more trusting of that, because that intuition for a guy like me, who's kind of like, you know, black or white kind of, is that's a tough thing for me to let go of, because it requires faith, it requires hope, and requires something that I had lost touch with. And since that happened, I've gained more hope, I've gained more faith, I've gained more of that spirit part of myself that I had when I was a child, but I've lost. So I love that you talk about that, about spirit, nourishing your spirit.
And I think, Martin, that the more you listen to it, the more you trust it, the more you hear it. So it kind of snowballs, and the more you hear it, and the more you act upon what you hear, then you get the benefits of that. And then you more you trust it again, and it kind of keeps going like that, which is great.
And then the more it'll resonate, kind of like, it's gonna
Absolutely.
you're gonna connect to
And
it
a lot
quicker.
of times it's not even about your own life. Like, when I heard that voice to call Helen in Greece, I mean, my gosh, it's a lot of times that voice is to guide you to bless somebody else's life,
Yeah.
where we bring it back to kindness again.
I was talking to a friend. I like, my relationship with God is are you kidding me? Like, that's how I sum my relationship up with God, because I'm so blessed. And I kind of look every day and things happen. And like, I was looking at some stuff today, and I was just like, what, are you kidding me? Like, it's just I'm so blessed. And I really enjoy that. Like, I'm really enjoying that part of my life of being blessed and playing with God and letting God like work through me. If that's in fact what's happening, I can't guarantee that's what's happening, but I can tell you that act with a lot less ego if I do that.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, I've had too many experiences that I can't explain. I know there's something bigger than me, whether it's God or Heavenly Father or Jesus or Buddha or Allah. I mean, I don't know who it is, but there's something outside of myself, because when and the impressions I get and the voice that I hear is as loud as I'm talking to you right now. And
Mhm.
but I've practiced that for at least 30 years now. When the message sometimes comes, it's my brain doesn't think that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Just that's what,
true.
because people say, "Well, how do you know it's not you?" Be thinking that. I'm like, "Well, I know how my brain thinks, and I know when I make decisions, it's based on logically, practically, and so on. But sometimes, like in my brain, it's like, okay, it's black or white, it's this or that.
Mhm.
And then that voice comes up, and it's the third option that I never considered in my life, and then I
Yeah.
follow that, and it works out.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I have no idea. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to explain, but it's happened way too many times in my life to ignore it.
That's so true. That's so true. Like, so many times I'll be coaching somebody or working with somebody, and then I start saying something, and I'm like,
Where did that
yeah,
come
that's
from?
that's
Where
not
did that
me,
come
because
from?
I don't talk like that.
Exactly, exactly. So I feel like you channel the spirit then when you do that, and it
Yeah,
it speaks or works through you to bless somebody else's life.
I love it. Well, this has certainly been a blessing, and I can't wait to get you back on again. Let's just kind of tease people about happiness for a second.
Okay.
Let's do that, and then I'm going to have you tell people about yourself and how they can get a hold of you, what you do, and go that. But let's talk for just a moment about happiness. Get them just kind of going.
Well, let me tell you this: what Aristotle said, another great Greek philosopher, said
Gotta
that
love the Greek guys, huh?
Come on, man. And Socrates, that's it. They're they're the A team. They're the.
Yes, I love it.
He basically said that happiness is the whole meaning and purpose of life, the whole end and aim of human existence. So that's it. Lights out after that. He captured the whole thing. This is what life is all about. And so my teaser to you is this. And this is one of the things that I feel like I've learned because of the pandemic, because, the pandemic has taught us a lot of things. I almost feel like this giant hand from the sky came and pushed the pause button, and paused everybody. And what I've learned from this great pause, that's what I call the great pause is
great pause.
The great pause. Yes. Do not procrastinate your happiness. Happiness now, not when I graduate, not when I get married, not when the kids leave the house, not when I get the next job, not when I retire, not when. Forget the whens. Happiness now. So invest in yourself, in your personal development, in your own personal happiness. Take responsibility for that, because happiness takes work. It's not like where you wake up and switch on the light. It takes work. It takes investment in yourself. Help other people. That contributes to your happiness. So, I can talk about that for another hour, but that's for another time.
We're going to do that in another hour.
Thank you.
I love that. I love that. Be willing to be happy. Just be
procrastinate.
Be willing to be happy. Yeah.
Don't procrastinate your happiness, man. Do it now.
I love it. I love it. So, Dr. Elia, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. What do you do? And how people can take advantage of your services.
Organizations to find wellness and happiness. Through coaching. And my happiness programs, online programs, and both books are on Amazon. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, because that's where I live on LinkedIn right now. So Elia Gourgouris, PhD, the Happiness Doctor. That's where you can find me, or at my website right here, dreliagourgouris.com. There you go. I love it.
I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. You definitely got my mind going. I was kind of nervous this morning when I woke up, because, I think that for me, curiosity is, I love curiosity because I get to find out stuff about things I don't know about. And I think I've been playing it safe because I've been speaking about topics that I think I know a little bit about. And when I looked this morning and I was like kind of exploring kindness, I was like, wow, I have no idea where this is going to go. And I can't wait to go back and listen to it, everything you had to say. And I'm just very, very, very honored that you come and spend time with us.
Thanks for having me on your show. It's been great. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. And this weekend we're going to be talking about, what is it we're talking about this weekend? About burnout. Saturday,
great topic. Burnout. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see you on Saturday about burnout. Thanks a lot. God bless you guys. And